What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Hollywood Already Did It, your weekly movie podcast about sequels, reboots, adaptations, anything that Hollywood has already done and will do again until we die. And there's no better example of that this week than a sequel to a property from the 90s that is crammed with more IP than Ready Player One and Roger Rabbit combined. Of course, I'm talking about Space Jam: A New Legacy, and I am your host, Blake Schultz, and with me is my co-host, Terrence Tatum.
Hello, everyone.
So, Terrence, do you want to jam and slam?
Come and ride this train and ride it.
Because I have a place for you. So, of
Yeah.
course, after 25 years, we now have the sequel to the beloved. I guess I love it. I'm not gonna pretend. I'm gonna be like the first one, the beloved classic Space Jam. The Looney Tunes meet Michael Jordan, and hijinks ensue. A basketball game to save the universe in 1996, released by Warner Brothers because the rights. And after that, we've just been trying to catch this in a bottle. We spawned some TV shows. Looney Tunes have been around in pop culture for years, but we had before we talk about this show, the many failed attempts at doing it again. We had a Space Jam 2 that Michael Jordan was going to do and then just simply never signed on for. We had Skate Jam with Tony Hawk that never came to fruition. We had a racing movie, a golf movie, and then Back in Action came out and it ruined any hope
I
of
said
us
that
ever
tanked
seeing.
everything.
So, we're geriatric millennials, you and I.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like we have to first talk about Space Jam.
Yeah.
Terrence, tell me about Space Jam.
It's funny because you and I, while the millennial gap or range is very wide, and it's weird because we both fit in it, but I'm on the older side of it all. So the first Space Jam came out around that time where I thought I was too cool for school. Like I didn't care about the cartoon stuff anymore. Like at 96, I was entering high school. And so I did not twofold. I didn't care about this movie. One, because Looney Tunes, while I still love the cartoons and I thought they were amazing and I was still into Tiny Toons, I wasn't actively going to a theater to watch a cartoon. And two, as a person from Detroit, Michigan, my love for Michael Jordan was very, very low. And so there's a twofold part. I was like, this just didn't interest me. I was more interested in the soundtrack than I was the.
Well, that's because the soundtrack was better than the movie.
It's amazing. Soundtrack is fantastic. A bit problematic now. There's a song.
You take one song out of there, and I think you're fine.
Yeah. But I did not see this until late, and I saw it, and I was like, wait, do people really enjoy this? Because this is not, for me, was not that good. Like if I'm looking at it structurally as a film, I'm like, this is basically an extended commercial, is what this feels like. It's like, all right, Nike and Warner Brothers, like, cool, let's just make it a long form commercial, and that's what they did. And I did not think the movie was that good, especially when you have stuff like that, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, that exists, that handled this in a lot better of mixing live action with animation. Cool World, not so much, but I did not have the affinity for this movie that a lot of people do. And it's a small window where they get a slightly younger and it just hits at the correct and right time that it sort of became this big thing. I know that there are a lot of people who look on this film with rose-colored glasses now and like, oh, this movie is so good. I don't know. I think you're one of them. I think you enjoy this film, but for me, this movie did not hold that much weight for me. So when I think about it, I don't think about it like, oh, there's no way you should redo this or you should try to recapture that lightning in a bottle. I'm like, hey, let's give it a shot. If it works, cool.
Contrary to popular belief, I love this movie. First, I was going to rip off Alternative Nerds bit, but I don't think I'm going to be able to put the Chicago Bulls walkout song into this podcast.
So that's a huge lay. That's a lot of money.
Contrary to popular belief, we are not going to introduce the 1996 Chicago Bulls. I am from Chicago, Illinois, sir. I was a child of the 90s who went to the Warner Brothers store every week at Old Orchard Mall in Skokie before I enjoyed Dennis Rodman, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen on that ball court every single time I could. And this movie was the cataclysm of what I believed was the entire universe, because when you are 9, your city is all you have.
Yeah.
And I wasn't 9, I was 7. So like, I don't know, my street corner. This movie was great. It brought in some of the best needle drops we've ever seen in a movie. The soundtrack is unstoppable.
It's insane. Yeah.
We see Michael Jordan, a superstar legend, at his lowest point as a baseball player in a very modest multi-bedroom suburban home. Modest compared to what we'll get to in a minute, and
Yeah.
now unaccessible to people our age. But that's not what we're here to do. The Monstars were great. You had Bugs Bunny doing the stuff. You had Bill Murray
Bill Murray
doing
having a
all of his jokes. Wayne Knight was
Wayne
on a
Knight was great.
cascade.
He was
And
good in this movie. Yeah.
and you're right, it was a commercial, but it was hilarious. He comes in because it was mocking the commercial aspects of Michael Jordan. You had Wayne Knight just doing this tirade of, well, we'll stop and get a Big Mac on the way. So grab your Hanes and and we just went on and on and on.
Yeah.
Hilarious. We had Bugs Bunny mocking him for not being a basketball player anymore when he claimed to be a baseball player. Incredible. Coming in at just under 90 minutes, it is a tight film with
Quick.
no discernible lesson or moral. Michael Jordan in this movie literally doesn't want to play basketball. He doesn't discover the love of the game when he's with the Tunes. He instead returns the power to his NBA stars who are like, I bet he can't even play anymore. And then we smash cut to the 1996 championship
Where
as if the only reason he wanted to play again was because this white man had the audacity
You
to
say I
say
can't
that
play?
Michael Jordan couldn't play the game.
and if anyone knows Mike and his competitiveness, I'm not entirely sure this wasn't done solely for that purpose. It's like, yo, you said what? Cool.
The
I'm
movie
gonna make an
was-
entire movie that shows you that's incorrect, and then I'm going to destroy you on the court for the next.
You've got
3
a
years.
catcher on the other team telling him to swing and not swing. He's so bad at baseball, but his combating with the Monstars is not what brings him back to it. It's petty locker room hijinks. And then we can't just cut to him getting ready to play. We have to cut to one of the most legendary NBA runs of all time. I don't think I'm just saying that as a casual fan. You would know better than I would.
The 96, the run with Rodman and them is they were winning like 72 games a year for those couple of years. They were the greatest team that has ever been assembled. Like, it was already good before his retirement. The first time, the Bulls were good. Like, they were a competitive team. They had the Horace Grant era. Like, that was a good team. When you put Rodman on there, you're like, oh, well, we can't do anything with these guys. So yes, they were significantly like better at that point in time. And so this was, like I said, Jordan competitive. If someone's telling him he can't do something and he went to baseball and he's like, I'm trying to try this, it's not working. So, well, I go back to knowing what I can do, and I will beat the living shit out of you for the next 5 years.
I mean, it has a touching opening with his dad. This is a piece of Americana. Danny DeVito is running a broken down theme park with small monsters that grow. It's amazing. It's classic.
It's definitely
Looney
a
Tunes
product.
antics.
Yes, it's definitely a product of the time. And like Looney Tunes at that point, we're still at a high. Like, you were still getting Looney Tunes video games.
Oh, Terrence, I could buy Tweety Bird saying, "Do you want to fuck with me?" on the back of a leather jacket.
Correct.
Like, I was
like, everybody
a
had the cool
badass.
hip hop Looney Tunes. You had
You would have
Taz
thought
had his
that the
own show.
jacket Terminator 2 got would have been having that on the back. I mean,
Yeah,
Bugs
like-
Bunny had crisscross jeans on and
Correct.
backwards
It was a
hats.
good
Oh my
time. Like,
God,
you
we're
had-
all terrible.
You had Taz having his own show, the Tiny Toons. Like, it was a great time if you love these type of cartoons. Which is why it's a bit weird that we're getting Space Jam now, because I feel like what the Looney Tunes currently are, it's not even close to the comparison. Like, there's generations who don't know who these characters are.
Well, I don't think we're trying to do the Looney Tunes now. I mean, we are, because HBO Max has a show, and there's always been, like the Muppets, there's always kind of been an attempt to bring the Looney Tunes back.
Mm-hmm.
There was Back in Action. There was Looney Tunes, the show. There have been video games and comics, and Elmer Fudd fought Batman and Lex Luthor and Daffy Duck and Martian the Manhunter with Marvin the Martian. These are incredible crossovers that DC did. So they've always kind of been around. And I don't think we're so much trying to do the Looney Tunes now as we're just trying to do Space Jam as a brand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's evident because Warner Brothers does not give a shit about who's in this movie.
The Looney Tunes are completely irrelevant to this film. I know that they're using them in the ads and all this, but I think that's just off of nostalgia. we don't get the Looney Tunes in this A New Legacy till about what 35 minutes into the
27
movie.
minutes.
Yeah, so 30 minutes into the movie, we don't get the Looney Tunes, and then when we do, because it just felt like because they're like the Warner Brothers heads were sitting there like there's a generation who don't know who these Looney Tunes characters are, but you know who they do know? They know Batman, they know Wonder Woman, they know Harry Potter. Let's
Baby
throw
Jane.
every other IP we humanly have to put some type of recognition that somebody in one of these audiences is going to be like, I know that one. That one I know.
Yes, if there's one thing the kids love today, it's Pennywise, Baby Jane, and the Clockwork Orange gang, as well as Casablanca and other characters that I couldn't
the
even
Nun from the Devils,
recognize.
which is a banned film. Like I don't know how these things end up in this movie for a studio that was like, hey, we're going to actively remove the sexually aggressive French skunk from the movie. Pepe Le Pew is going to be gone, but we're going to put the clown that murders kids and these group of people from Clockwork Orange who have sexually assaulted a woman in this movie. But we're going to take out the skunk because that's the problem.
So I want to go back and really kind of compare these two movies and then posit the question of why. Uh, in Space Jam, as I said, we're introduced to a Michael Jordan who is just awful. He is bad at baseball. His family is kind of whatever. We met his like loving dad who wanted him to be the best he could be. He's down on his luck. Nobody wants to work with him. Wayne Knight is babysitting him in a shitty car when he goes back to his home. In Space Jam: A New Legacy, we are introduced to LeBron James, the king.
Yeah.
And we are introduced to him first with a puke green Game Boy that then develops Game Boy Color graphics in the background, which we don't need to be annoyed too much by that. But I am furious about it for many reasons.
Yeah.
But we got Bugs Bunny's Crazy Castle.
It's a great
more
game.
love.
Yeah.
By doing this, we've established that LeBron James knows the tunes and that they're around. His dad then, instead of being loving and supportive, is like, throw that Game Boy out. And if you're not good at basketball, I will disown you. So we already are starting the movie in very similar ways.
Mm-hmm.
The father that made the son. And in one, we have a loving dad who was supportive and helpful. And in the other corner, I don't know LeBron James's story that well, and I'm not going to presume to know anything about his dad. I hope that this was a fictional character and not how LeBron James thinks of his father.
It's interesting. I honestly don't know. Like the majority of the press and love for LeBron comes towards his mother. Like his mother has been president, his mother is always around. I don't know much about his father, so I don't know if this is a one-to-one of what really happens. The family life that exists when he becomes adult is a sort of a one-to-one of what he has in real life, like his wife, his kid, like the number of kids, the boys, they are about the same. But I don't know if the father part of it is. But it's weird because, like, you're right. When we then go on this run of showing the highlights of real life LeBron in this film, and you're like, oh, okay, so he put down all the child things and he grew up to be this adult. But in doing so, the word on the movie keeps having is like he doesn't know how to have fun. And that's what they keep saying over and over again. Like, oh, you don't know how to have fun.
Like Space Jam 1 does the same thing. It's a montage of Michael Jordan's greatness for the title credits. There's a montage of LeBron James' greatness. But we now see in this world that it's like, well, Michael did it because his dad loved him. And LeBron didn't because his ass would have been beat if he wasn't the single greatest basketball player of all time. Yeah. And you're not.
Yeah.
Because Michael Jordan's out there. That's a different debate that I don't have
enough information for. That's a different combo.
But it's MJ. I don't care if it's Chicago bias. I don't care if I haven't watched a basketball game in years. It's fucking Michael Jordan. Those rings, baby. This movie, we're going to prove it in this movie because then we meet LeBron James, who is not in a humble home. He's in a house with a robot that when he yells ball, it launches a ball at him.
It's a ball.
We are in a what looks like a levitating basketball court.
Like I don't know what world he's at. I feel like it's just above water. I feel like it's floating.
And we then, so like Michael Jordan isn't even playing at like Comiskey Park or Wrigley Field. He's like playing in a backyard. There's like a humble humility to it.
Yeah,
We are introduced to LeBron James at like peak
he's the greatest thing ever.
incredible. You can't get away from him.
Yeah.
And then his son doesn't care about basketball and wants to make a video game. And I just don't believe that LeBron James would be like, what?
Well, that's what's weird because I know LeBron. I'm not a fan of him as a basketball player, but I know him personally. I am not a fan of LeBron as a basketball player. I am a fan of him as a humanitarian. He, if nothing else, is very human and is very caring about this. So my immediate thing was like, I don't believe this. Like, I don't believe that LeBron would be in a household where he would be like, hey, I don't care what you want to do, son. You're going to play ball and you're going to love it. Whatever your hopes and dreams are, screw all that. This is what I brought you into this world for. It just didn't read correctly. And I was like, I don't think, I mean, some of that might be because LeBron's not good enough of an actor to do that, but that's neither here nor there. I just don't think it was necessary. I was like, you could have done this in a different way to get these two characters apart to go into this weird internet world you wanted them to go to. This just doesn't feel earned.
I don't buy that this multimillionaire cares so much about what his son wants to do with his life that he's going to concoct this 1980s storyline of like, you better like sports.
Yeah.
Especially when like video games now make more money than anything else and esports exists.
I think that's the other problem. Like, this is existing in present day where gaming is like at an all-time high. That doesn't make any sense. If your kid wants to go into gaming, you're like, shit, go that way. If that's what you think you can do good at, go that way.
All LeBron's son has to do to be successful in life is wait.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't need to worry about money or what his dad thinks.
No.
It doesn't matter.
No, it's a bizarre way to enter into this world. And then when they split, like even the argument they have, the pitch meeting that they have, I was just like,
why would you argue with in front of all these executives?
Yeah, I was like, I don't feel like this makes any sense.
Everybody in that boardroom immediately should have been like, well, LeBron's an asshole, right?
LeBron's a dick. We don't really want him to be our brand ambassador.
It's not like everybody in that room was like, oh, your son wants to make a video game.
No, they're like, oh my God, that's cool. They're like, that's a great idea.
His wife is like, she's made his own world. He's built it. It's incredible. And he's just like, I don't fucking care. You would have thought that the whole thing was going to be like the Santa Claus, where at the end somebody had to like give LeBron a Game Boy, and he'd be like, "Oh my God!" Yeah. Like you would have thought that this was actually just like spite. Like,
yeah. It's a weird way to go into this movie based on who LeBron truly is, but just like, why would you make it so that he's so aggressive? So that while I'm watching this movie, I don't like him. Like, him going through these things with the Looney Tunes, I'm supposed to care about this character. You've made it so that I don't like him. And the guy that I do like, or the guy that I do care, is now hanging out with the bad guy. So I'm confused to what I'm supposed to be latching onto here.
Yeah, so then we got to do that for 30 minutes, which is where I was like, oh, man. And then finally, because Don Cheadle, nobody likes his program, which he made and already is a known. There was no real world counterpart to Don Cheadle.
No.
So I was very confused when they were like, well, we don't like Warner Brothers 3000. And I was like, so
what did you go with?
Do you know that you've created an AI or?
Right. Yeah.
It's a kid's movie, whatever. So then it sucks into the serververse. We got to see the Game of Thrones planet and the DC planet, and we end up at the Rejects with the Looney Tunes. The Monstars in Space Jam. Simple villain. Mm-hmm. My theme park sucks. I need Looney Tunes. If they lose in basketball, a sport they've decided to play because all of my teammates are tiny, I simply will own them.
Right.
Don Cheadle's plan, algorithm.
Yeah, because, we're creative.
Yeah, we figured that one out. Is to seduce LeBron's son into beating his dad with his own game so that everyone can see how good the program is.
I was sitting here the entire time like, hold on. No matter what you do, algorithm, at some point, his son's going to be like, hey, that is still my dad. So whatever we're doing, we got to stop because this
Well,
isn't going to work.
and his son also never seems to grasp that like Don Cheadle's evil.
He
He
seems,
has sucked
yeah,
real people into the Matrix,
yeah, like
and he
real
is
people,
threatening to delete animated people
your
who
own
apparently have
family has been
lives.
sucked in here. So at some point, you have to realize that no matter what he is telling you, it is evil.
And he's not being quiet about it. He gets
No.
on the stage and is like, "I have LeBron's son who thinks I'm awesome, and if you guys lose, I'm gonna keep all of you here forever, and I'm gonna kill the Looney Tunes." And LeBron's kid, who like can see his mom and parents, are just like, "Fine,
Cool.
this is what Dad gets for being like, my game's not that good."
Yeah, I can't do what I
And
want to do.
I just the whole time was like, God, I want him to beat his kid so bad
I do too. Like I
because
like
like this is horrible.
well, that's where I got stuck in this weird conundrum where I'm like, I don't like either of them because LeBron being the person like, hey, I don't want you to go do what you want to do. You got to do what I want to do. And then this kid being what they made to be seem like an imbecile. Like, how do you not realize what's happening here? And now you just don't care about your family or anybody else besides yourself because you can't go make your damn game. I don't care about any of you, and I want Pennywise to kill all of you.
Well, that was the other thing I kept saying. I was like, okay, fine, serververse. Let's because the best part of the movie was playing with all these IP. So like, fine. Um, that being said, Batman, Superman, Batgirl, Green Lantern, The Flash, Martian, the Manhunter,
Yeah,
a lot of
Wonder
people,
Woman,
Wonder
Animaniacs,
Woman.
Kong is there.
So screw who's there for a minute. There's a supervillain that just announced the destruction of a world. I feel like Superman and Batman of the Justice League should have immediately been like, "Oh,
Well,
let's stop
oh,
him."
okay, so that's what's weird to me because that's where I was trying to have I was kind of
That
having a
shield should
problem.
have come down, and
Should
Batman
have.
should have just been like, "I figured out how to beat him. Let's get him."
That's where I was having an issue. I was like, are these characters that they're sucking in one to one? Like, are they the real life, like real life? Are they the real version of Superman? Or are they real version? Or are they like a carbon copy of him? Because if they're the real version of you, you're correct. Why are they just sitting here watching basketball? Stop this. Like you should
And
be ending this immediately.
and then like so the whole time because then you got the goon. So okay, Monstars and Goon Squad. I don't know the Monstars names. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it's an Oscar-winning movie or that it's even like a more fun movie than just like remember the '90s.
Yeah.
But like the Monstars each had a personality and they each had like a voice and they each had a bit. The Goon Squad was just this like hodgepodge of CGI that just kept being like, "What are you gonna do, King? I'm a spider with webs.
And
Oh, I'm wet and I'm hot at the same time,
it's
motherfucker."
it's real weird too because if you don't know these characters uh like these basketball players in real life, they don't really step into any of this or information in here. But Dame Lillard, who is the one who has the clock, he has a saying that when he plays basketball, he's like, "Oh, it's Dame time." That would be useful information to an audience who does not play basketball or who
Oh
does
yeah,
not
I
know
didn't
what
know
we're
that. I just thought we had a dude to stop time.
stop time. His whole thing is like, "Oh, it's Dame time." So that's why when he plays with the watch, it makes sense. The guy who's wet and cold, wet fire, Clay Thompson. His nickname on the duo on the court is called Splash Brothers. So he's super wet, which means when you're like you can make it from anywhere, but you're also on fire. So that's why they do that. That information is useful to an audience that does not know this, but they don't do any of that type of information in this game. They're like, "Cool, you either know it or you don't. If you don't, F you."
Yeah, so that almost changes what I was going to say because they actually then do have very distinct personalities, but we don't know any of that.
No.
So I just kept being like, well, why not? Why isn't Don Cheadle instead doing some like, aren't you tired of the heroes winning? Join my team, and the villains will be the ones who win. And I'll redo the serververse, and now all the movies will be that the Joker wins. And then like Reverse Flash could just be your
Mhm.
speedster, and you can have all of these villains on your team that we all recognize and know and love. Instead of squinting at like Mario Party 3 sprites, trying to figure out who's who when like the penguin has jeans on and you've just hired somebody who's not Arnold Schwarzenegger to be
To look
Mr.
like the freeze in a
Freeze.
robe. Yeah, I was like, my brain was like, oh, is that the freeze? I was like, did they superimpose Arnold on in Batman in there, or did they get somebody? I was like, no, that's clearly someone else dressed up as Freeze. This is ridiculous. Then I started seeing that from everybody, from the Nun to Pennywise and whatnot. I see the Animaniacs are up on the roof. I'm like, I don't understand what the point of all of this is. Like, I don't.
Money and synergy.
Well, that's what's
But
funny about all that is like I'm sitting here. I bet you the Warner Brothers heads were like, "Yo, let's put everything we possibly own in there." Without even watching, they have to have not watched some of these films because some of these movies, you're like, I don't think these characters belong in a kids' film. I don't think we should put these folks here. But no one cared. They're like, "Hey, they're all together. Put it, all
well,
of it. Put
it's
it all
such a
there."
shame because the stuff that I did like about the movie, I'll stop ripping it apart now because I did not dislike it. I just there's a lot in it that I'm like, what are we doing here? But like once we got to Bugs and he's just alone and he's doing the big chungus and he's doing rabbit season, duck season, and say your line, loved it. He's got this Elmer Fudd pumpkin, loved it. We start going from planet to planet. We've got Lola Themyscira. We've got Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner and Mad Max. We've got Foghorn Leghorn and Game of Thrones. With some all of those bits, except for Granny and Speedy in the Matrix, made me laugh hysterically.
Gotcha.
Witness me on the sign, great. I say, winter is coming, great.
I loved all the stuff with Wile E. Coyote. Like I thought he was fantastic in this movie, especially the stuff where he was basically the marine that brought them back into the game. I thought that was cool.
And
Lola really was the centerpiece of the Looney Tunes as a whole. I mean, I guess that works when you're putting Zendaya as the voice. You're like, yeah, we're gonna give her most of the meat of
well,
what we're
she
doing here.
was the basketball player in Space Jam.
Yeah, yeah.
So it
Um,
makes sense. But I was like, could we not have cut 15 minutes of LeBron being a bad dad
well, I
and done
think
where was Gossamer, Terrence? I want to see Gossamer in Pennywise world. Where
yeah,
was Gossamer?
I think that's where I sat. Like even before I went in, like I was like, all right, cool, let me watch Space Jam, and then I saw that tag. I was like, hour 54. I know for a fact the other one was only like 87 minutes or 88 minutes. Could possibly be in this movie that is so pertinent that we need to add an extra 30 minutes of padding onto it. And after watching the film, I cannot answer that question because I
Got to
still
get
don't
that
know
game
what is
design stuff
necessary.
in there. Well, that's what's weird, right? Is like the first one was so Michael's story, and this one is so like LeBron's kids' story, but they make him the villain so
Yeah.
LeBron can learn a lesson. And in doing so, they kind of take out his agency. So then I'm like, well, Bugs has the most interesting story of like all of my friends left. They're
Mm-hmm.
not being who they really are, which is then like how they win the game is like we're all just trying to be LeBron. We're all
Right.
trying to fit in somewhere else. We should just be tunes, and LeBron should just let his son be his son. It's not a bad theme and it's not a bad parallel. It just isn't, it's just filtered through nonsense.
Yeah.
And in doing so, I was like, well, I just want to see more of where this is hitting hard, which is in the insanity of like who is where. Because I also like I'm a sucker for like we went to the animated DC planet. And I was like, who's here? And then we went to the Matrix, and I was like, who's in the Matrix? I gotta know. This is great. If we're gonna have all these properties, if we're gonna have Hanna Barbera characters run up, why wasn't there a Hanna Barbera scene? Why
Mm-hmm.
wasn't there a scene with Huckleberry Hound and Elmer Fudd or like crossovers are everywhere now. They've been everywhere forever. So I'm like, just keep giving me that. I don't care about superstar LeBron James in his multi-million dollar house
Yeah. I
because
think
you also
that
did no
part
work to make him humble. He's
I think that part
bald.
is so sloppy that it doesn't really resolve. And because I'm sitting here like I don't think the way that we handle this and the way this is all done, the way that they switch Dom going back to LeBron's team, I was like, this isn't clean or earned. It just happens to be we need to get there because we only have about 20 minutes left in the script. And so I wish if we're going to be that sloppy with it all, then yeah, I think we spend more times on the Looney Tune characters and those bits because that is some of the parts that are actually actively working about this movie. Um, if nothing else, I do hope that kids walk away with this having a little bit more love or care for the Looney Tunes, that they kind of do a deep dive on their own about some of the good stuff that Looney Tunes are in.
Yeah, I then we kind of get to the like because I guess that's really the movie. Because then the end is just like they win and it's fine, and we have the fake self-sacrifice, but you can't kill a
You're
tune.
not, yes, you're not
We
killing
don't
the
even
tune.
try to explain why Bugs is
Just
around.
in the real world. Yeah, I was like, okay, sure.
Um, which yeah, more interesting premises. Bugs Bunny in the real world hanging out with LeBron. We had the Monstars in the crowd, so I was like, well, if we're gonna, all right. We barely really addressed that they had done this before. I
I
liked the
couldn't.
Michael B. Jordan joke a
Oh,
lot.
that bit was great. That whole bit was fantastic. But I kept going back and forth. I was like, hold on, I am confused. Is this movie saying that Space Jam 1 before happened, or if it was a film? Because here's where it got confusing. In his pitch meeting, Space Jam 1 poster is in the pitch. And I'm like, hold up, are they saying
Yeah.
that this is a movie that exists outside of this franchise, or like was Michael? Are addressing the Looney Tunes have seen Michael Jordan come here
Well, yeah,
before? And
because when
then
they get Lola, she's like, yeah, been there, done that.
yeah, and I was just like, okay, I don't know where this exists on the zeitgeist. Like, is this a part of the world or just saying a separate thing?
No, I don't think we'll ever know because I don't
No,
think they know.
no.
Uh, yeah, so why 25 years? We're here now. Sequel, remake, reboot. What is this? Is this the first time on our not the first time? Is this one of the few times on our show where we really have to be like, it's money? They
This,
want to show off their IPs.
yeah,
They want to do a quick and I mean it worked. It made a lot of money.
it did well. 31.7 and knocked off Widow. Like, here's the thing. I think uh Warner Brothers has been one of the studios for a while that has been actively searching for an IP. So they've been searching for anything that has ever existed in the past that they've had. Like, hey, if we bring this back, can we do a way to pump up our other IPs? And this is the perfect sort of window to be like, all right, we can bring back Space Jam, and we can also throw everything that we possibly have in the kitchen sink to see what sticks. They've been trying hard with once Harry Potter stopped, they're like, shit, we don't have
What
anything.
will
So
we
they've been
do with all of these giant horror properties and these
yeah,
superhero properties and these
yeah,
animated properties and
because you
oh
keep
no.
shitting the bed with the DC stuff. Those Fantastic Beasts are not good. So you kind of like we're spinning our wheels and trying to find something, and that's what I think they've been doing. And then Space Jam hits, it's done well, but I think they're going to now say come out of this and like, all right, what can we also do to sort of bring more IP back to us to sort of get our ball rolling. I didn't think it would be Space Jam. I didn't think this would do well enough to. I didn't think Looney Tunes had enough of a draw, and I still don't
Oh,
think they do.
I was like, it's gonna make so much money.
Oh, you did? You did? You thought it would? I did
You
not think it.
cannot look. We have been doing '80s nostalgia longer than I've been alive, which is not true, but it feels that way. We've done so little like
Like
90s
this is like
properties.
mid to late '90s. So this is
Gargoyles,
yeah,
Space
like that Darkwing
Jam,
Duck era of
Courage
Ghost.
the Curdly
Yeah,
Dog, Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Lab, Looney Tunes on reruns. There's so much in that decade that we just have kind of not mined yet
yeah,
from both Warner Brothers and Nickelodeon and Disney that it is like it's time.
it
Like
is.
we've been sitting here waiting for this movie,
And that decade of group or age group is now at an age where they can show their kids or show their or
and
take
it's
spend money.
LeBron James.
It
I mean,
is who's still the biggest. Like
when
as
they
much as I don't like
announced
him,
this, I was like, look, I don't think anybody will ever be as big as Michael Jordan
but this is the
was.
closest you're gonna get.
I don't, and I could be wrong, but like Twitter didn't exist then, and I lived in Chicago. I don't really know, but LeBron is as close as you're gonna get.
It's as close as you're gonna get. I think it was different at that point in time because you didn't have as much access to the players as you did. Michael, it was just a different thing. Like NBA at that point in time was just insane, and Michael was like a rock star, especially that basketball team he came back to in the '96. When you add Rodman to it, they were like a globe-trotting rock star team going from city to
I
city.
don't think we've ever seen anything like it
No,
in any sport
no.
since.
Um, but LeBron is the closest with it because with social media presence and all that stuff, he is the biggest name. And I think they clearly hit a gold mine here. I mean, this is doing well. I don't. It's interesting. I'm interested to see how this does post this week. And I also think that number is super impressive because HBO Max is free. Like once you have HBO Max, you don't have to pay anything else on top of it. Whereas those Black Widow numbers are a little bit elevated because you have to spend extra money. that number might be higher than 31.7 because I would imagine that the households who actually watched Space Jam at home, I didn't go to the theater to see it. I watched it at home. It's higher than 31.7. Like that number is a low number
And
for
I
what
mean, look,
actually
Space
saw it.
Jam merchandise wise has made like $1 billion.
Yeah.
So
And here's
it's a different world. There's not a Warner Brothers store anchoring malls anymore,
correct.
which I
And
miss so much.
here's the thing that I have to say. I am an adult. You are an adult. Neither of us have kids.
Legally, yeah.
That we know of. We feel I didn't like it at all. You were so on it, but I will say we are not also not the audience for it. My goddaughter texted me and she said she loved it. It's got an A- cinema score, so I think they're the kids who this is made for seem to be enjoying this for whatever it is. They seem to be enjoying it, although I think it's a bit long in tooth. I think if it was shorter, they might love it more. But they seem to not have a problem with that length. So I think at the end of the day, that's who they care about more
It's
so.
interesting because we have a show that's like, let's compare the original and the other one. But I am seeing just so many people our age be like, the first one, though. And I'm like, okay, we can like,
well,
we grew up. It's not for us.
Yeah, I think that's a thing too.
I know I just spent 40 minutes doing this.
I think there's a rose-colored glasses that looks back at that film because I will be honest with you. I have said at the beginning, I don't think that film is really that good, nor do I think this one is good. I will say structurally, as a film, this is a better made movie. I still rather watch that first one more just because it's shorter. It gets me in and out. Whereas this one is like this sort of slogs through a lot of the stuff that I just don't need to spend time with.
Yeah, I think it's like, I don't know. It's not really worth getting worked up about. Like, I don't care enough, right? Like
it's
I've seen
like with
so many
we
things on
talk about
Twitter.
this with we talk about this type of stuff with music and hip hop and stuff. We're like, yeah, I don't care about half the stuff that comes out today. If you give me a new Nas album, a new Rest in Peace, a new DMX album, I will listen to that because that's more my speed. I care about that. But if you say that this other stuff is your thing, cool. I can't shit on that because I remember when I was that age and a DMX came out, they were like, what the hell are you listening to? So I guess I'm at the age now where I've aged out of that and I can't really crap on it more than saying this isn't for me.
I just don't have the energy. And I feel like I'm going to argue that what we just did is different because we compared the two. We were like, look, he's just rude in this one.
Yeah.
But who knows? Maybe I'm hypocritical and we just spent an hour ripping apart a children's movie because the people demand content. So I don't know. I don't have an answer to it. I think if you're on the internet freaking out about something that came out when you were 10, calm down a little bit, but also like get into it a little bit. I don't know. Everything in moderation, including moderation. No, what ruined your childhood was growing up. That's the only time ruined your childhood.
Taxes effed up your childhood.
Taxes, capitalism, and needing a 9-to-5 job and the bags under your eyes. That ruined your childhood. Space Jam 2 just sort of is there.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I thought it was fine. I don't know. I probably could have sat here and spent more time being like, the Looney Tunes were fun and less time being like, and then these got to be in this house. But you spent most of your movie in this house being like making me deal with this. And I just don't care. I'm here for Bugs Bunny, although I would love a Tony Hawk one. I don't know.
Is there anybody else that's big enough sports wise? I'm trying to think that would be like, can we do this with
Tiger Woods if it was 20 years ago?
I say about 8 years ago, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. Serena, maybe like the Williams is probably, you could probably do
I would watch that.
Yeah.
Look, this is like, it's like the Mario sports games. You put the characters I like in the sport and I'll watch it.
Right.
I'll play Mario Golf if I can like be Yoshi and hit a ball at a toadstool. That sounds awesome to me.
Yeah.
If you want to be like, today the Looney Tunes are partnering with, I don't know, Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock to do Wrestling Jam.
I'm watching that.
I'm home. Yeah.
Right.
I'm in. And I don't care. So I'm like, great, get a bowling one. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
As long as I can watch the Looney Tunes be loony and I can watch the internet be loony in response to it, and we can sit here and laugh and then be like, we shouldn't get too worked up about it after getting worked up about it.
Worked up. Yeah.
And the wheel will keep spinning, and you will leave us a review on iTunes and you will let us know what you thought, and as well as a comment on our YouTube channel. And you can follow the show at Hollywood Already Did It on Instagram and Twitter. I'm at, as always, Blake, and Terrence is at Terrence Tatum. And you can find everything else we do on the Hollywood Already Did It podcast and YouTube channel with You Can't Do That Anymore and Marvel Pair Ups. a show about movies that you might not be able to make anymore, and another one about Marvel television shows like Loki, WandaVision, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier paired up with a movie in the genre of the show. I also do How Do You Figure about action figure collecting, and Terrence does all of our reactions and reviews on the Hollywood Channel, and we will see you all uh next
Yeah,
week, maybe for Snake
maybe,
Eyes.
maybe.
I don't know.
LA's changing.
Right. So we'll see.
Later.